So I was walking home one night, and all of a sudden I noticed someone was following me. And I only noticed because, when I walk home, I try to look around, make sure there's, no dangers around, I guess. But I noticed this guy, and he was just staring at me very intensely, and he was walking quite fast as well, as if he was trying to catch up. And so, I didn't think too much of it, and I just tried to run him off, just to try and walk faster. But eventually I reached my tram stop, so where you wait for the tram to come. And all of a sudden, I just feel a tap on my shoulder. It wasn't a tap, it was like a very it was actually a very forceful just hand on my shoulder. And I turn around and it's the guy. And he's staring at me intensely. And he says, "Wait, I know you." And I'm like, shit. Am I gonna get mugged? Is he mad because I annoyed him? I didn't even know who the guy was, so I couldn't have done that. So did I annoy one of his friends? Maybe. But then he says, "You're the YouTuber." And as soon as he said that, there was a massive sigh of relief. Because I don't know about you, but when a random guy stares at you intensely and walks and follows you all the way to your tram stop and then puts your hand on your shoulder very forcefully, not like a light tap, and he says that line, it's a massive sigh of relief. And eventually we had some small chat. He basically is another student. He used to watch my videos on my other YouTube channel, and yeah, he he thought it was very helpful, and so he just wanted to come up and say hi. So even though it was a very harmless interaction, the way I kind of pictured it and the way I remember it was basically like the beginning of a horror story of someone getting kidnapped. And the reason I wanted to share the story is I want to talk about the idea of fame. So first of all, by no means am I famous. I have this YouTube channel with a few thousand subscribers. This is other channel, by the way, not this one that you're watching this on. And I help students get through high school. And so within this small space, I'm known by a few people. And occasionally, from time to time, I get people come up to me on the streets saying, "Hey, you helped me so much with your videos," things like that. And that story was an example of that. But this example was by far the weirdest person fan interaction I've ever had. And it got me thinking about the idea of being famous, because obviously this is just a very minor taste test of it. It's not I'm not claiming to be a celebrity, no means at all. But being recognized on the street and having strangers come up to you, it's a weird experience. And you might be thinking, okay, this doesn't apply to me. But if you are going down the path of anything, if you're trying to get good, if you're ambitious and you're trying to excel in whatever field, eventually you're going to get the recognition and strangers will come up to you. So you may think that this is not relevant to you, but eventually, or maybe already, you will have these things come up in your day-to-day life. And it got me thinking that fame is not a benefit of success. It's a consequence of success. And I mean consequence in a bad way. If there was a way, for me at least, to succeed without becoming famous, I would definitely take that route. Now, when I say famous, I mean worldwide famous or recognized by a lot of people. Sure, it'd be nice to get some recognition within a tight-knit group of people, but usually when people say famous, we're talking about societal recognition. You're recognized by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And I realize it's a consequence because once you have that level of fame, basically there's no going back. And I was talking to this girl YouTuber who has millions of subscribers, and she was telling me that fame was never something that she purposely sought for. It was just a consequence of her making videos. And now, she doesn't mind it, but she told me that sometimes she stays at home for the majority of the week because she wants to avoid having to talk to people on the streets. She wants to be avoided. She'll catch the Uber as opposed to public transport because she doesn't want to be recognized or end up with any weird interactions. And it was just a very interesting experience because this is not a very talked about idea, but a lot of people want to make it big on social media and become famous, but they don't realize that there's also massive consequences to that. And the worst consequence is when you don't get any of the benefits of social media, whatever that may be, in terms of whether that be money or network, things like that. If you don't get any of that, but you lose your privacy, That's the worst case scenario. The second best case scenario is when you have all those like tangible external rewards like money, your network, whatever, and you lose your privacy. But then the best case scenario for me is when you're able to achieve all that success without losing the privacy itself. Now, obviously, this is something that I'm still like, thinking about and working towards, but I just want to share the story because this is probably not something that a lot of like online creators talk about, but I just want to provide that like transparency because I know there are people like one of my friends actually who wants to become famous at all costs. Like their sole goal in life is to just become famous, well known, recognized by millions. And sure, if that's like genuinely goal and you've like thought through about that, then it's fine. But oftentimes our idea of fame is not as good as it seems. And so that's why I don't want to become famous.